The top stories tonight in Y News. The province of Misamis Occidental and the town of Pilar in Abra were placed under the Commission on Elections control ahead of the 2022 national and local elections.
A Comelec commissioner opposes the proposal to put COVID-19 vaccination sites near polling places.
Less than 2 months before President Duterte steps down from office, Malacanang formed a transition committee headed by Executive Secretary Salvador Mediadea.
Alarming new research reveals that the sea level is rising twice as fast as previously forecast around parts of New Zealand.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, the 4th of May, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am Mariel Latoza.
First in the news, the entire province of Misamis Occidental and the municipality of Pilar in Abra has been placed under the control of the Commission on Elections, or Comelec. The Comelec also recommended to the Philippine National Police to relieve the entire police detachment in Pilar, Abra. Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
Comelec Chairman Saidamen Pangarungan decided to exercise his emergency powers to declare the entire Misamis Occidental province and the town of Pilar Abra under Comelec control. This amid the safety and security concerns related to the upcoming polls in the areas. In a press conference, Pangarungan said he has received a report on the apparent bias, threats, and intimidation to supporters of several candidates in Pilar Abra.
Pati yung mayor, vice mayor, mga councilors halos nagtatago na sila because they feel that they cannot be protected by the local police detachment of Pilar. And all these concerns, as confirmed to me by the regional election director, I declared Pilar under Comelec control using my emergency power under Comelec Resolution numbers 10777.
Pangarungan also ordered the relief of all police personnel assigned in Pilar.
I received confidential reports from our regional election director, si Attorney Tabilas, and also the petition of the local government unit in Pilar disclosing the apparent bias ng local police detachment sa Pilar Abra, and also yung mga threats and intimidation to some supporters of certain candidates sa Pilar.
PNP Chief Police General Junardo Carlos immediately ordered the regional director to replace the Pilar Police Force, including the Chief of Police.
Actually, kung that police station will have about 20-30 personnel, madali namang i-replace yan. And yung personnel na ipapalit natin knows the area. Normally, coming from the mobile force or the regional mobile force or somebody who has been assigned before in the area, in the town of Pilar. So, hindi po magiging problema yan. We can immediately adjust.
It can be recalled that the staff of Pilar Vice Mayor Jaja Josefina Somero Disono was killed when members of the local police fired upon her van while the government officials' team was passing through a supposed Comelec checkpoint along Berona Street last March 29. Meanwhile, in Misamis Occidental, Pangarungan said that the decision to place it under Comelec control was unanimously decided by the Joint Security Control Center. Once an area is declared under Comelec control, the agency shall take immediate and direct control and supervision over all national and local officials and employees required by law to perform duties and or to comply with certain prohibitions relative to the conduct of the elections. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Commission on Elections admits most cases on vote buying from past elections had been dismissed. However, the Commission is determined to set an example this time by filing airtight cases. Rosa Licos reports why.
Commission on Elections Commissioner Attorney George Erwin Garcia revealed that many charges were filed before on vote-buying activities. However, though there were multiple reports of rampant vote-buying in various parts of the country, cases had been dismissed by courts due to lack of evidence. None of the politicians involved have been found guilty of such electoral violation.
Madaming nakasuhan, madami pong nahuli, madami pong na-filean na nagkaroon ng kaso sa Commission on Election. Madami rin po kami na-determine na may probable cause. Kaya lang po, unfortunately, pag darating sa korte ay kalimitan na-dismiss.
For this year's election, the Comelec is determined to set an example by filing airtight cases. Comelec also does not want to file cases in court that will only be dismissed.
Sana po, this time, kung may mga magpapile ng kaso at may mga witnesses, sana po mapapaninindigan yung pong maipapile na kaso at yung kanilang mga sinumpaang salaysay.
Vote buying as well as vote selling are criminal as well as election offenses. According to the Department of Justice, various government agencies are coordinating to take action on these cases and complaints. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines calls for the implementation of holidays in government offices, especially on Election Day. Asher Cadapan Jr. explains why.
Unscheduled maintenance shutdown of power plants may force power interruptions to be implemented during the election day. The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines fears this as it currently sees adequate power supply until the national and local pulse and beyond. NGCP spokesperson Attorney Cynthia Alabanza says such situations happen in previous years, especially in the month of May, which is the peak of the dry season.
Manipis siya. Ang ibig sabihin ng manipis, yung kaya pa na idaan kung walang babagsak na planta, pero isang kembot na lang, isang kibot na lang ng unplanned power interruption, posibleng maglayag ng NGCP ng alert status over the grid.
With this, the NGCP calls for the declaration of holidays in government offices while the election activities are conducted. The NGCP explains about 1,000 to 2,000 megawatts of electricity is reduced during holidays or weekends. The palace, however, has yet to declare May 9 a special non-working holiday for government offices.
Pag nangyari yung holiday on election day and even up to the succeeding days during counting, canvassing, and transmission of the election results from the PCOS machine, posibleng i-consider sana ng gobyerno para ma-safeguard talaga natin yung election day and the results of this election.
Aside from this measure, the NGCP encourages the use of power generators by private sectors like malls, factories, and office building operation, among others, while residential consumers are advised to conserve electricity during weekdays or office hours where power demand is at its peak. Asher Cadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health is discussing a possible move to put vaccination sites near polling precincts on Election Day. However, Comelec Commissioner Erwin Garcia is against the proposal. Dante Amento tells us why.
The proposal to put COVID-19 vaccination sites near voting centers on Election Day could cause confusion. Commissioner George Erwin Garcia explains, voters may get the wrong impression that they need to get vaccinated first before they may be able to cast their votes.
We have to allow our voters to vote first. Huwag na po muna siguro isabay natin sa pagboto. Number one. Number two, alam niyo po kung bakit? Malilito po ang botante. Bakit po malilito? Malilito po ang botante. Baka akala po na para makaboto ka, kinakailangan magpapakuna ka muna. Or at the same time, baka sabihin po ng mga botante, requirement pala yung pagpabakuna, baka po matakot yung iba na pumunta, lalo pat yung mga unvaccinated at dahil doon sa kanilang paniniwala o personal man o religious or whatever.
But Garcia clarifies he is not against the vaccination, but it is not the proper timing. Every Filipino has a constitutional right to suffrage. However, there is no law yet which mandates obligatory vaccination. The poll body is also making sure to avoid congestion inside the polling centers to avoid the spread of COVID-19.
The polling center is fully controlled by the Commission on Election. Whatever will happen there will be within our jurisdiction. In fact, kahit nga po ang military, PNP, bawal pumasok sa polling center. They can only stay there outside of the polling center, 50 meters from the polling precincts or polling centers.
Garcia is ready to explain his position at the Comelec and Bank. He will also propose to suspend the vaccination drive on Monday to encourage more voters to cast their votes. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Apart from the polling precincts to be used on May 9, the Department of Education also prepares the protocols for the isolation polling precincts. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
In order to prevent the spread of COVID-19 during the elections, the Department of Education prepares protocols for isolation polling precincts or IPPs. According to the Education Department, the IPPs are located near the entrance of public schools for a streamlined process in case a voter shows symptoms of COVID-19.
Ito ay nasa loob ng paaralan dahil kung meron mang botante na merong 37.5 degrees Celsius na temperature at pataas, ito ay i-separate natin at dito natin pabubutuhin sa IPP.
Amid the ongoing threat of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Comelec implemented health and safety protocols to prevent the spread of the virus. This includes opening isolation polling precincts. DepEd also said principals, school heads, and district supervisors assisted in choosing which areas to use as isolation polling precincts, which will fit the standards set by Comelec.
Una, hiwalay, and second, malapit sa entrance, and the third, meron dapat mga health personnel na nandun. Nang sa gayon ay kung meron mang botante na mataas ang temperatura, ay kagad na magkaroon ng mabigyan ng assistant and doon siya makakapag boto.
Earlier, Comelec conducted a simulation in the isolation polling precinct in Araulio High School in Manila, led by Commissioner Amy Neri. Upon entering the polling precincts, a voter will undergo a health screening. If the voter's body temperature reaches 37.5 degrees or has signs of fever, he will be assisted to the isolation polling area. Upon voting, it will be upon the decision of the local government if they will turn over the voter to the City Health Department for further medical assistance. There are 37,219 schools serving as polling precincts during the elections, where there are 106,439 clustered precincts. DepEd says several vote counting machines and election paraphernalia were already brought to schools in preparation for the elections. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The World Health Organization reminds nations to enhance surveillance and sequencing of COVID-19 positive samples. According to WHO, they are expecting more BA.2.12.1 Omicron sublineage in the United States. Aiko Miguel explains why.
COVID-19 technical lead of the WHO Health Emergencies Program, Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove, explains the importance of enhancing biosurveillance and genome sequencing to detect COVID-19 variants. Dr. Kerkhove explains that countries should track the evolution of COVID-19 variants, especially the Omicron variant of concern and its sublineages.
So it is really critical that testing continues, that sequencing continues, and that there's good geographic representation of those sequences, that samples are shared, that isolates are shared so that research can be carried out so that we could better understand transmission, severity, immune escape, as well as the impact of our countermeasures.
Dr. Kirkov also said Omicron keeps on evolving. Also, there's no exact count yet on the number of Omicron sublineages.
There are about a few thousand sequences available of this variant, BA.2.12.1, and there are many studies that are underway to evaluate this further. Most of the sequences of this Omicron variant are identified in the United States.
Enhanced surveillance and sequencing will also track the COVID-19 evolution and prevent the spread of Omicron variants. The WHO also explained that Omicron BA.2.12.1 sublineage may have more cases than the BA.2 Omicron subvariant that caused surge in countries including the Philippines last January.
There is a slight growth advantage of BA.2.12.1 over BA.2, and so we expect more cases to be detected of this variant.
Dr. Kirkov added the WHO and their partners around the world are able to track the known variants of concern and all of their sublineages, as well as the possibility of new emerging variants of concern. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Office of President Rodrigo Duterte has created a transition committee. Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea had been tasked to lead the transfer of power to the next administration. Rosa Licos reports why.
In order to ensure smooth transition of power to the next administration, the Office of President Rodrigo Duterte has already created a transition committee. This is less than 2 months before President Duterte steps down from office.
The Office of the President created a transition committee chaired by Executive Secretary Bingbong Medialdea to prepare and implement the Office of the President Transition Plan.
However, the palace has yet to give the details on the other members of the committee. On June 30, 2022, the transfer of power will take place as well as the inauguration of the next president. The Presidential Transition Committee will coordinate with other agency transition committees. The presumptive president must also create its own transition committee. The two transition committees will have to meet to ensure smooth takeover of government on June 30. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has called on Filipinos to protect their votes, stressing that these should not be stolen. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Days before the elections, Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has urged Filipino voters to choose a unifying leader and exercise their right to vote as it is their responsibility to do so.
Kailangan natin makiisa sa halalan. Ito'y sagrado nating pananagutan sa ating bayan sapagkat isang mahalagang sangkapito ng proseso ng ating paghuhusga kung sino ang mamumuno pagkaraan ng pilian.
He also calls on the public to guard their votes.
Sa darating na Mayo 9 ay kailangan din po tayo maging mapagbantay sa ating mga boto. Protektahan po natin ang ating naging desisyon at wag po nating hayaang ito'y muling nakawin sa atin.
In his campaign rallies, Marcos has called for unity among Filipinos as he believes that this will solve the country's problem. The Unity Team standard bearer reiterated that Filipinos should unite as the country aims to recover from the crisis brought by the pandemic. He said division should no longer exist among Filipinos. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Robredo-Pangilinan tandem secures new endorsements from various sectors as they continue the campaign trail in several parts of the country. Harleen Delgado will tell us why.
As she continued to woo voters in the home stretch of the campaign, independent candidate Vice President Leni Robredo goes back to Mindanao. There, she attended a campaign rally in Pantauragat in Lanao del Norte, where she was also endorsed by Mayor Ayran Lantud and other local officials. She also visited the province of Zamboanga del Norte, where a Grand People's Rally was held at the Sunset Boulevard in Dipolog City. In the 2016 vice presidential race, Robredo both won in the two provinces. Meanwhile, Robredo's running mate, Senator Leni-Kiko was in Cagayan de Oro earlier today. The senator held a press conference together with Mayor Oscar Moreno, who is a vocal supporter of the Leni-Kiko tandem. There, Pangilinan highlighted his platform on prioritizing the agriculture sector, noting that he is in favor of revisiting the Rice Tariffication Law.
We want to expand that na mas malaki yung cash component immediately para talagang yung bagsak ng presyo ng palay na apektado sila lahat at yung cost of production ay mataas, mas mura bumili ng imported, masasabayan, no, mabigyan ng assistance.
Pangilinan was also welcomed by supporters in Misamis Oriental and Cebu. Meanwhile, over 1,000 religious leaders from the group Clergy for the Moral Choice have expressed support to the Robredo-Pangilinan tandem.
Aming nakilatis at aming nakita na sa pagkakataong ito, kakaiba ang landscape na ating ginagalawan. Lubhang kailangan ang mas konkretong pakikilahok ng simbahan sapagkat ito ay labanan sa panig ng totoo at ng buwad.
Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And amid the rising fuel prices, several transport groups are planning to withdraw their petition for a fare hike increase. JP Nunez will tell us why.
Several transport groups expressed satisfaction to the government's fuel subsidy and service contracting program. That is why, according to LTFRB Executive Director Cristina Casion, some transport groups plan to withdraw their petition for a fare hike.
Kasama natin si Pasang Mazda, One Utak, Altodap at saka si Acto po. Yung mga petitioners po natin sa fare hike at paabot naman sila ng appreciation nila po no, na na-implement naman din ng national government yung prinamis sa kanila na fuel subsidy at ng service contracting program. Kaya't sinabi nila kanina na magwi-withdraw na daw sila sa kanilang petition. So inaantay na lang po natin ngayon yung formal na withdrawal naman nila doon sa kanilang petition.
However, one transport group will still pursue to file another petition before the scheduled hearing on May 26. Transport Group 1 Utak confirmed to UNTV News that they will still file a 2 peso provisional increase on the minimum fare in jeepneys. Chairman Attorney Vigor Mendoza explains that jeepney drivers and operators are still severely affected by the continuous price increase of petroleum products.
Ang aming ma-file po yung dagdag provisional increase. No? Dati ang hinihingi natin yung 1 piso lang. Hindi tayo na pagbigyan sa 1 piso. Ang hinihingi natin ngayon 2 piso.
Meanwhile, the Philippine National Transport Operators Association will also file a petition to the LTFRB to add 20 pesos to the flag down rate. With this additional fare, taxi operators projects that the daily income of drivers will have an additional 600 to 800 pesos. However, if the fare hike petition of transport groups will still be denied despite the soaring fuel price increase, they fear that more public transport operators and drivers will cease their operations.
We can only do things through the legal means. Ang magiging epekto nito, siyempre, kung patuloy na tataas ang presyo ng gasolina at hindi mapapagbigyan yung panawagan natin na i-adjust naman yung pamasahe, ang mangyayari nito ay talagang mababawasan yung ating mga pampublikong sasakyan na bumabiyahe.
JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, In addition to seasonal influenza vaccination, the United States is transiting to a new normal that may include annual COVID-19 vaccination. Nerissa Dando will tell us why live. Yes, Nerissa, good evening.
Good evening, Marielle. U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, says that the United States may need to update its vaccines on a yearly basis. This comes after Dr. Peter Marks, Dr. Janet Woodcock, and Dr. Robert Califf from the FDA stated in their paper published in the medical journal JAMA that it is important to recognize that the fall season will present a major opportunity to improve COVID-19 vaccination. This would mean including annual COVID-19 vaccination aside from the seasonal influenza vaccination, according to the U.S. FDA officials. FDA officials may come up with a decision on the composition of the current vaccines to target the variants that are currently circulating. Part of their decision also includes vaccination plans for COVID-19 vaccines during the fall and winter seasons and who should be eligible for the additional COVID-19 shots. For the meantime, the FDA officials stated that the decision on the COVID-19 vaccine composition will need to be made by June 2022. Marielle?
Thank you, Nerissa Dando, for that live report.
The United States urges the United Nations Security Council to put a unified vote to further sanction North Korea over its continuous ballistic missile launches. The United States already laid out an initial draft resolution among the 15-member council last April to discontinue exports of oil and tobacco to North Korea. However, China and Russia oppose to further sanction Pyongyang, and a Security Council resolution needs 9 yes votes to get through without veto. According to U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, it is their plan to put the resolution forward this month, and they hope to keep the Council unified in condemning North Korea's actions. North Korea has been sanctioned by the United Nations since 2006 and has elevated over the years to cut off funding for Pyongyang's nuclear weapon programs, which the Asian state somehow successfully evaded through cyber attacks on cryptocurrency exchanges.
Around 500 Ukrainian refugees are camping out in Mexico City while still waiting for the U.S. government to grant them entry into the country. Jane Robles will tell us why live. Yes, Jane, go ahead.
Marielle, the established camp in Mexico under the program Uniting for Ukraine has only been opened for a week, and it sees around 50 to 100 people arriving every day. Some of the refugees have already reached the U.S. border in Tijuana, but were told that they would no longer be admitted. Anastasia Polo, co-founder of United with Ukraine, a non-governmental organization, said they are asking for the U.S. government to expedite the process. While U.S. government officials told Ms. Polo that it should take a week to process people, she has not heard of sponsors being approved yet. To qualify for the program, Ukrainians would have to apply from Europe or other countries like Mexico. They must have been in Ukraine as of February 11 and have a sponsor, among other requirements. Meanwhile, nearly 5.5 million Ukrainians, mostly women and children, fled Ukraine since February 24, according to the UN High Commissioner of Refugees. Marielle?
Jane, and what is the condition of the camp where the Ukrainian refugees are situated?
Marielle, Ms. Polo described the camp as a safe place to wait, but the refugees were warned that no one is responsible for their safety if they leave the complex. Security is provided by the Mexican government, and meals through a mobile kitchen are being provided by the Navy. But they are also asking the government for a possibility of moving the camp to a safer area. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Jane Robles, reporting live.
Qantas, one of Australia's major airlines, has announced it will be taking passengers on the world's longest flights from 2025. Maybe and Dog will give us the details live. Yes, Maeve, go ahead.
William, Qantas is taking a major step towards launching Project Sunrise, which is the airline's vision of establishing direct flights between Australia and the cities of London and New York. Qantas Chief Executive Alan Joyce said the project will make any city in the world one flight away from Australia. This would fix the traditionally challenging travel routes to the country. The flights are expected to take more than 19 hours, with Mr. Joyce stating that they are looking for ways to make the journey pleasant for passengers. This includes having a well-being zone in the center of the planes. President of the Australian and International Pilots Association, Tony Lucas, said the ultra-long-haul routes would present challenges in terms of operations and fatigue, but will be a learning experience for the airline and the pilots. Qantas has bought 12 A350-1000 Airbuses to operate the routes, and they are expected to arrive in Australia in 2025. William?
Yes, thank you very much. Maeve Yandog reporting live.
In other news, New Zealand will start experiencing more damaging floods and erosions, expecting to hit vulnerable coastal communities the most. Paul Gatchalian will tell us why live. Yes, Paul?
Ariel, global sea levels are rising twice as fast than expected. Researchers forecast that for New Zealand, sea levels will rise up to 30 centimeters by the year 2040 and 1 meter by the year 2100. Experts at the government-funded program NZ Rise states that these changes are seen almost 3 decades earlier, since New Zealand's land is already constantly sinking with an average of 3 to 4 millimeters per year. With a faster rate of rising sea levels, New Zealand Sea Rise co-leader Tim Nash warns numerous communities and towns to expect significant flood damage and erosion every year, which is a big change from experiencing them every century. The 2 big cities, Auckland and Wellington, and the millions of residents in these areas are especially vulnerable to these changes. Nash added that although these fast-approaching changes are terrifying, there's still a plan for adapting to this rise in sea level. NZ Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern confirmed that local governments are already helping with climate adaptation planning and relocation of some coastal communities. Marielle?
So, Paul, what facilitates the rise of these sea levels?
Well, Marielle, global sea rise is a direct result of the melting of ice glaciers and the ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica, which increases the overall volume of our oceans. This is why everyone, including New Zealand residents, are encouraged to do their part in reducing emissions and reducing the impact on climate change. Back to you, Marielle.
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, for that live report. Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the Global Prayer for Humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 8. It says, "The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly."
And those are the reasons behind the news, May 4, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Maria Latoza reporting live from Perth, Australia.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.